His administration is halting the nation's funding to the World Health Organization (WHO) as COVID-19 continues to take a toll globally. Trump said a review is being conducted to assess the WHO's role in addressing the spread of coronavirus. He claimed that the WHO failed to adequately obtain, vet and share information in a timely and transparent manner, failed to immediately launch an investigation after the epidemic broke out, and failed to move quickly enough to sound the alarm over COVID-19. Now, WHO officials on Monday used facts and data to refute the accusations and to understand the impact of this move. I'm now joined by UNFPA country representative Dr. Oladije Ademola, who's joining us by way of phone. Good evening, sir. Thank you very much for joining us here on KTN Prime. With this decision or move by US President Donald Trump, just talk to us about the far-reaching effects of this move.
Well, thank you very much for having me. The challenge around this suspension of funding by the United States government is the fact that the WHO had been struggling, like quite a number of United Nations agencies, from underfunding. And therefore means that if it therefore goes forward and doesn't have adequate funding with US withholding its funds, it will find itself in a difficult situation, and it would have to try as much as possible to reinvent itself, reinvent its strategies, and its capacity to do that which it does best, which is protecting global health, will be compromised. And that's not a place we want to find ourselves as a global community.
Especially developing countries, and bring it back to Kenya, where we are trying to contain the situation. We're getting funding from and support from sides like the WHO, you name it. What does this mean for especially the sub-Saharan countries and Kenya in particular?
One thing is clear: the WHO and other United Nations agencies remain consistent and focused in providing support to developing countries, particularly on the African continent and the sub-Saharan countries. So this means that we have to find ways to be more efficient. We have to continue to reinvent our strategies and reinvent our programs under the leadership of national governments to ensure we create critical synergies, we reduce waste, we strengthen efficiencies, and of course we work with the leadership at the national level to mobilize resources. We've got donors and partners at the national level who are also willing to put some money on the table or provide us technical resources or human resources. It would therefore mean that we have to find a new way of doing business, because the work that has to be done will not stop, because it must not stop. And that's the way we're going to go forward.
Well, the United Nations Population Fund has found itself in such a situation, when the Trump team took over as a president of the U.S. How did you handle this as UNFPA? And then what do we expect to see in the coming days in terms of, response even from the UNFPA?
Well, it happened to the UNFPA just as you have said. When donor countries provide us development assistance, it is driven by their own foreign policy objectives. And so when national governments like the United States government defunded the UNFPA had to look inward, had to look towards other countries whose foreign policy objectives aligned very strongly with our very critical mandates. Try to raise resources from there, but also had to shed some weight and then prioritize the resources we have. I do believe that if the WHO and other UN agencies find themselves in that same kind of situation, that's going to be the strategy going forward. We'll try to begin to break out of the traditional donor strongholds to look for funding elsewhere, leveraging the power of the private sector, which in a country like Kenya is enormous, and their reach, and then trying to find new ways of doing our things better. That's the way to do it. That's how UNFPA did it, and that's how we continue to push our mandate going forward.
Much for speaking to us here on KTN Prime. Dr. Oladije Ademola is a country representative of the United Nations Population Fund, or UNFPA, just talking about, the far-reaching effects of that decision taken by US President Donald Trump to halt funding to the World Health Organization. A story we'll continue to keep an eye on, even as we take a look at what does that mean for us.